Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. As you can tell based on the title, well, today we're going to be talking about Givenchy and specifically Sarah Burton's Givenchy. This was a video that was highly requested. Of all the fashion shows people wanted me to talk about, it was this one. I thought we'd talk about it today just because I've been able to let the collection sit with me. We'll talk about the fashion, we'll talk about the handbags, of course. And I think a lot of people were curious about this collection. Not only was this a debut collection from Sarah Burton, it was very highly anticipated. Just to backtrack a little bit, Sarah Burton abruptly left McQueen after being at the brand for 26 years, first joining the brand working as the right hand to Alexander McQueen himself in 1997, and then leading the brand when he passed away in 2011. So there was an uproar about her leaving because not only was she his second in command, but she really learned from him and carried on his legacy. If there was anyone that really knew his work, it was her, right? And then Kering let her go in 2023. They had hired Sean McGear, who faces a very difficult task in terms of taking over the brand after her. And then in 2024, it was announced that she would be the creative director of Givenchy. So that felt very exciting. Givenchy as a brand has fallen by the wayside recent years. It's one of these legacy brands that has had really major moments in history. Founder Hubert de Givenchy, he had established this house in 1952, and for his debut collection, he introduced this idea of separates. And this was an exciting concept, this idea of elegant yet practical pieces that allowed women to mix and match their wardrobes. It's just a very fresh and modern approach to fashion at the time. In 1953, Givenchy formed a creative partnership and lifelong friendship with Audrey Hepburn, who became the brand's most notable muse. She famously wore his designs for films like Breakfast at Tiffany's and Sabrina. Givenchy's very architectural approach to fashion, it was often compared to his mentor, Cristobal Balenciaga, and the brand, it maintained that reputation for this sophisticated, regal style. He dressed celebrities, royalty, including Jackie Kennedy, Princess Grace, as well as prominent socialites. In 1995, he stepped down, and after that there was a period where there were several different designers that brought their own vision to the house. In 1995, John Galliano, who was an up-and-coming designer at the time, really took the brand in a different direction. It was very much a departure from Givenchy's refined elegance. However, his tenure was short-lived, and then the next year we would see Alexander McQueen, who would be at the brand from 1996 to 2001. And his Givenchy, it had this side of dark romanticism, masterful tailoring. His collections were very theatrical and groundbreaking, but also very polarizing. They were very provocative and politically charged collections. They drew a lot of backlash from critics who may have felt it undermined Givenchy's more elegant and sophisticated approach. But despite the controversies, McQueen did push the boundaries in terms of what couture could really represent. We saw this theatricality, this narrative-driven fashion, and really brought that to Givenchy. And then from 2001 to 2004, Julian McDonald was the creative director. He focused on modernizing the brand, but giving it more of this glamour and red carpet appeal. And then from 2005 and 2007, Riccardo Tisci led the brand. During this period, in recent memory, it was one of the hottest brands, I think, of the 2010s, also the late 2000s. Riccardo Tisci really brought that cool, that edge. It was kind of this perfect fusion of streetwear meets gothic romanticism. I always think of the Kanye West and Kim Kardashian couple era, but the bags were also so good. One of the defining bags of the 2010s was the Antigona. During this period, this rise of Instagram, social media, fashion bloggers, this was that bag, that cool girl bag. It had this more like structured trapezoidal shape that had a zipper, so it wasn't just like this flop around tote. It just looked smart, it looked cool. He also had other defining styles like the Pandora, the Nightingale, the Horizon. Another iconic creation during his era is the shark boots. I remember them when they came out then, and I still think they just hit today. He also had really popular commercial ready-to-wear pieces like the Rottweiler, the Bambi shirts, as well as many celebrities were seen on the red carpet wearing Givenchy. From both a cultural and a commercial standpoint, Givenchy was really at its height. And then Riccardo Tisci stepped down, and then the brand was taken over by Claire White Keller. And this was a new phase, going back to more like classic couture techniques. There were beautiful embellishments, luxurious fabrics, precise tailoring, more of a return to what Hubert de Givenchy's work was known for. I think a defining moment for her was when she created the Meghan Markle wedding dress. This kind of like really ultra feminine, regal elegance. It wasn't punchy or really dramatic or trying to be so pop cultural. Her collections were really quite beautiful, but she wasn't at the brand for that long. I think one thing that was not felt at her Givenchy were accessories that were immediate hits, that were immediate commercial hits. Also, just like the vibe of the brand was very different. So Givenchy and Claire White Keller, they parted ways, and then the brand did another 180 and hired Matthew Williams. So he's a designer known for streetwear, closer to like the Tisci approach, still kind of this like dark vibe though. This was during the time when LVMH at their brands, they had Kim Jones at Dior, there was Virgil Abloh at Louis Vuitton, and then now Matthew Williams at Givenchy. It was during the mega rise of luxury streetwear. His Givenchy, he brought like really signature hardware, utilitarian accents and buckles, and there was also a move towards using pop cultural figures like the Kardashians as ambassadors, having the Hadids like front their campaigns. They did various collaborations like Disney to Tiffany, but I think the biggest issue for Matthew Williams is Givenchy. There was no like immediate or obvious commercial it piece. A lot of his accessories, at least in the beginning, were rehashes of Tisci creations like the Antigona with different hardware, like the shark boots with different hardware, those like really cool like buckles and utilitarian accents. But I think there was no immediate or obvious commercial it piece the way Tisci had many it pieces. Now the thing about Tisci and the thing about when he took over the brand though, when he was at the brand for a lot longer, I will say I do think his best bag was the Voyou, but it came towards the end of his tenure. It never really caught on, and then he left. The brand not only did a complete 180, but it just felt like the brand was back to square one again. The design team created a few collections, but it just kind of felt lost. It ultimately was no longer one of these brands that was driving these fashion conversations. It wasn't really culturally hyped, nor were there any like it pieces, be it the ready-to-wear or the accessories that were really being talked about. So when it was announced that Sarah Burton would lead this brand, it just made sense. And not only had she just abruptly left McQueen, someone with her experience, it just felt right that she would be the one to channel the legacy of the brand. Of course, there's her connection to McQueen, but she's also very revered as the designer that does couture. Like she learned from the best from McQueen, so she would be able to bring that to the house as well as reference the legacy of Hubert de Givenchy. What we are seeing here though, it is not couture, but she definitely is someone that has the skill and experience that can bring that to the brand. Now let's take a look at her debut. As always, I'm someone who's going to look at the fashion, but of course I'm going to be looking at the handbags. I just like to talk about that as well. Just some major themes that were quite obvious with this collection. There was, I think, a heritage revival. Sarah Burton really did delve back into the Givenchy archives, reimagining iconic pieces. For instance, there was this baby doll dress. This was a reference to spring summer 1958, but it just felt a little bit more updated in terms of the cut. Another noteworthy look was this dress made of compact mirrors, powder cases, makeup inspired, creating this very surreal effect. And I wonder, just as somebody following LVMH and seeing how a lot of these LVMH brands are really pushing their beauty brands. Of course, Louis Vuitton just announced they're going to be pushing beauty. We've seen beauty and fragrances be pushed quite heavily at these brands. Now, Givenchy already does have a beauty line. I have never actually tried it, as well as a fragrance line. I do remember Givenchy did have a very popular powder product of some sort. It makes me think, are we going to see more beauty at Givenchy with this new era, with what a lot of these other LVMH brands are doing, as well as beauty? At the end of the day, it's a more accessible price point product, and with luxury fashion just like skyrocketing in price, this will be something a little bit more accessible. I don't know, or it just could have been like a cool surrealistic idea. Another very embellished and opulent look was look 47. The model has these multi-shaped, multicolored, multi-sized gemstones draped all over her body. Just such a contrast to the model's very tailored, minimal look. Throughout the collection, there was a lot of use of lace, tulle, very reminiscent of the Hubert de Givenchy eras. There were moments of embroidery, and I will say I don't know if it felt as intricate as her work at McQueen. Maybe it's just because the references are a little bit different, but when I think about her work at McQueen, it was quite nature heavy, organic plants and like insects. Whereas I think a lot of this collection, to me, it felt more like a focus on like a polished silhouette. There are also these really interesting textural contrasts. In terms of colors, it was quite a, I would say, neutral, heavy collection, with the exception of some of these yellows. More yellows featured than probably any other color, as well as these blush pinks, literal blushes with that like compact dress. Mostly a lot of blacks, whites, there were some grays, there's a trench coat, there's also this gray and black pattern. The pop of color throughout the collection though was this yellow, and I do think throughout the collection there was, I think, this contrast between a lot of looks that were made of tulle and more delicate materials, but then there were also these powerful looks, like these powerful leather jackets and leather accents and dresses. Now, there was an emphasis on tailoring. When I think of Sarah Burton's work, there has always been an emphasis on tailoring. Felt highly sculptural. I think also reminiscent of Givenchy's more like sharper suits, cocoon coats from the 1950s. These blazer dresses had great volume but still contoured the model's body. Sarah Burton had expressed how she wanted her work here to have this 360 aspect. We see that in her tailoring, had leather jackets like this, as well as this very interesting reversed suit jacket. So again, this idea of 360, being able to like turn around and see the look in total. I think looking at a lot of these pictures on Vogue or on Instagram or wherever, you're not really gonna get the full effect. So I'm just gonna be playing the videos throughout this collection. There was also this other tailored moment where it looked like a one piece, maybe it's a two-piece cord set with this tailored tube top, but it looks quite seamless to me, like it's all connected perfectly down the middle. The pants also had these deep cuts. Another noteworthy point is we saw very prominent branding. The logo was first noticed even on this first look here, this very like body hugging catsuit like look. These netted body hugging pieces were also in the form of dresses. This logo was heavily present on the shoes. Maybe this is something that the brand really wants to push, like just to give more visibility to the identity of this brand, just because it hasn't really been that present. But yeah, it was all over the boots, all over the shoes. And the first impression of this collection, the first impression of her tenure, to me what this shows is the brand really wants to signal that it's back, and this is the way they're doing it. With this, it's not even just Givenchy, but it's Paris. It's 1952, signaling this is a Parisian brand, has a major legacy. Now, when it came to bags, a lot of these bags had more sculptural or quite like structured silhouettes. A lot of these shapes were quite like sharp and geometric, echoing a lot of the types of tailoring that we saw on the runway. There wasn't a whole lot of bags, but the ones that we did see were, I would say, a little bit more angular with cleaner lines, structured frames, quite architectural. A lot of them had these metal side sangle details. They're not sangles, but they just had these metal details on the ends. Something about the shapes of these bags, I'm not gonna lie, they do remind me of the McQueen Demanta clutch. Something about that bat wing shape. I have this bag somewhere. I can't find it for the life of me. This felt a little bit more like simplified. Some of these bags had more metallic finishes. Also want to talk about some of these evening and clutch bags. Of course, the bag that I think really stood out was this compact beauty clutch that matched the dress, kind of like a wristlet pouch, but then it's got more of these compact details. And we've also got this jewel chain clutch here as well. And these kinds of statement jewels we also saw with the jewelry, these like bold gemstone jewelry, earrings and bracelets. We saw that in several looks. Chunkier bracelets. Also these scarves made from, it looks like a leather that has this, again, very like sculptured, oversized effect. I feel like we're seeing a lot of these kinds of oversized, cartoonish like accessories. And then going back to the shoes with the Givenchy text on them. They had some open toe shoes with fur accents, some shoes that had this matching embroidered print on them. The tips were more of this like square toe. To me, a lot of the shoes just felt like they were like a part of the look. This white poofy dress, and then we've got this kind of like poofy tulle effect on the shoes. They just felt like pieces that would match the outfits. Was sort of this puffiness as well throughout the collection, like these puffy sleeves with this dress or like this little bralette skirt and dress, as well as in this skirt jacket set. A lot of looks with these cinched belts, these like sashes that again had that like tie effect. Overall, when looking at this collection, to me it felt a return to the heritage of the brand, to Givenchy Paris 1952. It was felt in terms of the branding to signal this new era with this new designer, someone that is experienced in couture, that understands the legacy of the brand. I think we will see red carpet moments with pieces like that cosmetic dress. I could see like a pop star, someone like Ariana Grande wearing something like that, or that bejeweled look. But then I could also see a lot of women in their everyday lives wearing a lot of these kinds of blazers, these kinds of tailored jackets. So I think to me this collection felt like she was honoring the legacy of Hubert de Givenchy. Yes, she was playing it quite safe. There's nothing really like groundbreaking, but I think this is probably what LVMH wants from this brand. I think they want this brand to be profitable. I don't know if they want to take a whole lot of risks with this brand. It will be exciting to follow this brand, to see what she can do at the brand, because I think if there is anyone to take over this brand, it is her. I don't think it's going to be as punchy as Riccardo Tisci's Givenchy or as edgy as Matthew Williams. I think she is going to honor the brand. I will say I do think it's very important, just looking at the history of this brand, Givenchy will need, I think, a very defining it piece. It could be a bag, it could be a shoe, it could be a jacket, it could be a piece of ready to wear, whatever it is, and it needs to like connect with customers. And I think there's also a business side that needs to like make this work as well. I think the strongest pieces to me weren't the handbags, weren't the shoes, but more of the ready to wear, more of these jackets. I really like some of these tailored jackets that cinch in at the waist. I could see those having more commercial appeal. To me, I could see a lot of the Sarah Burton isms with the tailoring. I really like this like 360 idea. There's like a lot more volume in a lot of these looks. I thought these ballooning sleeves with this nipped in waist, actually quite nice. I'm sure they'll have these netted bodysuit pieces as well. That will be something that they'll probably push in stores. I also really liked a lot of these gathered neckline pieces. Those were quite nice as well. Everything that I'm seeing on the runway, that's something I would actually like to see in person and see how something like that would look on me. But would also check out the bags as well, just to see what they're like. But yes, anyways, I would love to know, what do you guys think? What did you think of this collection? Please let me know down below. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!